Hello and welcome to The Scaling Game. This is a podcast where we discuss how we help direct response advertisers find and fix what's preventing them from scaling their business. I'm Sammy Afrin. I'm the head of creative strategy at Deciphered. Alongside me in this episode and every other, you will see John Belcher. He's the founder of Deciphered. In today's episode, we're going to break down how we helped a click-to-call business decrease their CPAs by 17%, ultimately 4xing the size of their business in just 12 months. I know you want to hear all about it, but first I have to pause and remind you to please go watch the very first episode of The Scaling Game if you have not yet seen that. It's a foundational episode that lays out the rules of the game and gives you some vocab and lingo that'll make sure that this episode is as valuable to you as it can be. Aside from that, I'm going to zip it and we're going to jump right into this one. I'll see you there. All right, hi John. Today we are talking click to call. So we've brought it to this point. This is our case study number 10, the last one, I think, for a while. You know, we'll kind of move into some more interesting stuff after this. But this one is a big one, a deep dive, a long haul. Lots of everything we've talked about in all the episodes leading up to this point, I think, kind of come to play in this conversation. So I really want to make sure we give it the time and justice that it deserves. Let's start where we always start, by getting some context before we look at the actual numbers within their funnel.
Yeah, so I got referred this business from a really successful entrepreneur I worked with a lot in the past. And he was basically like, this is a really successful business. They're a multiple nine-figure business, right? Really successful. They've been super smart with the way that they've grown their business, leveraging channels most people, like when they told me how they built the business, I was like, seriously? How did you figure out how to monetize that, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable, but they'd had success with paid traffic in the past. They'd been able to run, 100,000, maybe 200 a month. And they'd had days where things were really successful, right? They were able to make tons of sales. This is, once again, a click-to-call business is an ad that immediately you click on the page and you connect to a phone rep.
Right.
And then something is sold over the phone. So it's not a long sales process. It's literally ad, landing page, click, rep, sale, right?
Right.
So they've been able to do it well for periods. They had times in the past working with affiliate stuff like that where they were able to make 100, 200 sales a day. But it was kind of like whoop, boop, boop, boop. And so they'd never been able to get to the point where they were able to have consistency at scale, right? That's what they were looking for. Is they're like, we know that we can make sales. Can we make sales consistently at a large volume? And so once again, this is a business where it's like, I'd never run this funnel before. And so they go, do you think you can do this? And I said, well, I've never run this funnel type before, but this process has worked on every other funnel type I've ever worked with. So let's just work through the process. Let's work together for a couple months, see if we can make some headway. And understand, is this something that we can really do, right?
Right.
And so I think giving a little background on this, we'll kind of dig in here once we had some numbers. But ultimately, what this was for me was, did I really believe in the process that we'd done working for a super successful business? Could we make a dent for them? And what you'll see in the results is a resounding yes. But it wasn't a one... this has absolutely been, when we talk about scaling plateaus and moving through the process, like this is the absolute biggest example of this has been about month over month scaling plans. What's the next thing we work on to continue to stack up? And I'm excited to share the results.
So when we look at what we have broken out here in the scaling equation calculator, we didn't really discuss where they were predominantly present as far as ad networks. We're talking predominantly Facebook traffic.
Yeah, it was just Facebook.
Oh, okay. So no presence really anywhere else at all. So what we're looking at right here, at least, is...
Turn your mic towards you a little more. There you go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So Facebook only. Had they ever tried any other ad networks? Or that's kind of, they found what worked there and had not had yet the person in place to go and expand elsewhere?
I'm pretty sure they had tried other networks. I just don't...
Okay.
They'd never had anything that was very successful.
Okay. So finally, we start the engagement. Come in, let's take a couple months stab at this, see what this looks like, right? We do what we always do, and we start by doing our funnel analysis. That looks like trying to identify where the math stops mathing, basically. When you broke this out into progression rates and put it into the equation or to the scaling calculator, what did you see?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is came in just to get an understanding of how this funnel worked, what were averages, right? So it was like 30 to 60 days of running traffic to kind of understand how does this funnel type work. We built ad creatives that tested their, ran against their control that had worked in the past, and we were able to beat it pretty quickly. So we had better messaging, but we quickly ran into a scaling plateau, right? It was something where it was like, okay, there's something in here that is not operating at the level that we need to be able to really take things to the next level. So this is where I dove into the funnel analysis. And this is where I started leveraging the mathematical modeling that we had built out to tell us what's really going to make the biggest difference, right? And so just to explain how this funnel works. So there's an ad, there's a landing page where there's the ability to click to call. There's the click to call rate. Did the call actually connect? So people can click but not actually complete the call. Right. And then, percentage it's closed on the phone, right?
So it's a one call close.
Oh, yeah. It's within 30 minutes is a sale made or not. Couple things here. There's two numbers that are identical from a progression rate perspective, the click to call rate and the close rate. These were both showing pretty equivalent ability to make an impact for CPA. We don't have really an ability to work on close rate. So gave that to the client. Is there anything you can do to optimize this? And I said, biggest thing that I can focus on is click to call, right? So when we talk about this, our where was here. This is where the most leverage was. We were out of, getting 900 people on the landing page. Only 90 were even clicking to call off of a 2 to 3 minute ad that was doing a pretty good job explaining. And so to me, there was something here where it was like, we can see there's a numerical advantage to focusing on this. And then on top of that, it was like, I think there's something we can do here. But once again, this is telling a successful business to change what's worked in the past. And so that was that part for me of, what do we need to do here? How do we present this in a way that's compelling to do a quick test?
So for clarity's sake, I want to make sure we're all on the same page here. I know, but let's make sure it's clear for everyone else. You said the opportunities for the biggest point to impact were going to be either the close rate or the click to call rate. You found that by doing the 1% modeling to see where 1% would make the biggest difference. That's what you were using?
Yeah. So just to explain really quickly, what we do is we go through and model and say incrementally, if we were going to improve, the progression rate here by 1%, how much would that lower the CPA, right? And so this was looking at it and saying, okay, for every 1%, this is our highest leverage opportunity. This is what would lower the CPAs the most. So we should focus our efforts here.
Okay. Just wanted to say that concretely so everyone was kind of understanding what you meant when you said that. So, all right, we've identified our where, the where that we can control. There's actually two where opportunities. But again, in the case of a lot of these clients that have, the call centers, the sales teams on the other end of things, we have to know what we can control. Guys, you guys look at this, handle what you guys have your tail on. We're going to focus on this click to call rate. So we go here, we're looking at a 10% rate. Because you never work with this funnel type, there's no benchmarks, right? So you're really, we're just going to try to get 1%. All right, 1%. Great, let's do it. Once you started doing the funnel review, right? So you've identified this click to call point. There's not that many steps, like you said, in this funnel to really go and review. We had confidence that the ads were working pretty well already. So ultimately, you've got the landing page, and then that's kind of it. So let's talk about why. Let's start hypothesizing, well, why is it dropping there?
So big thing for us when we look at the why process is, as we said, whenever we see this, we go look upstream at all of the steps. Granted, there's not very many steps, right? It's an ad, and then is the landing page loading. And then they're being asked to place a phone call. And so to me, this was one of those things where I don't like making phone calls if I don't have to. I don't imagine there's a lot of people that are like, I want to get on the phone to be sold something, whatever. So when we're looking at it, I was like, we need to create more reasoning. Like, what is it? Why would I want to make this call? Right? That's really what this is about, is why do I want to get over when in chemistry, we talk about this, so I'm just going to draw a little graph up here. Whenever there's a chemical reaction, this is basically what the equation, like what the graph looks like. Ooh, let me scoot up. So this is called the energy of activation, right? It's EA. Right. You have to get someone over the hump to make the reaction move forward. And so basically what was going on here is there was a lack of reasoning to get them to want to complete a phone call. So I'm just going to put here like lack of urgency,
Importance.
value prop,
Yeah.
whatever. It was just one of those things where it was like, I am not entirely sure why I would want to get on this phone call. And so this was this piece of like, we have to create something. Our hypothesis is if we create something about this experience that makes it feel like I want to make this phone call, we believe that the numbers will improve, right? And a lot of times when we go through this, our hypotheses are pretty simple and they're not necessarily like super
Groundbreaking.
deep.
Yeah.
But it's just basically one of those things where it's like, hey guys, you've been able to do this because you have a ton of volume of, clicks coming in, what have you. But there's something here that's missing that if we improve this thought process behind it, we're going to get more people on that are willing to close and we'll be able to go from there. And so that was just kind of the thought process behind this.
So, all right, the why. They don't feel like like nobody really wants to get on a phone call unless they have to. They were not being given enough reason to want to make said phone call, right? To click to call. We talk about, I want to pivot to the how here by way of conversation that we actually had fairly recently, right? And we talked about how oftentimes, like you said, the hypothesis that we come up with is very rarely groundbreaking, something nobody else could have thought of, like whatever else, right? We have identified the problem. We have an idea of why that problem is existing. I think the actual work and the actual, in this case particularly, the difference maker was not necessarily like, obviously this is going to boil to some degree down to the message that we're delivering by way of our sales process, but also being able to, that how isn't just the sales message, it's how are you going to present the sales message. So how are you going to put together the sales message? How are you going to weave together a convincing message to make them do this? But then how is that message going to present itself? Because sure, you could just slap on a new landing page, write a new sales message and go that route. But sometimes there are better ways to present your ideas, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think the how in this particular case is, it's the reason it worked. But I'll let you, kind of give your piece now.
Agreed. And just to give a little context here, so Sammy and I have been doing the how for a long time, but we've been going back and forth on what's the best way to teach other people the how, right?
Yeah.
How do we make it a simple, steps to follow process? So honestly, what the how comes down to is first thing is reviewing the sales letter formula,
right.
Looking at all of the steps, right?
Yeah.
So sales letter formula is step one. Understanding, is there any important information that's missing, right? Going through and laying in all those blocks. What have we communicated on the ad? What's being communicated on the landing page? So it starts with, are there any important pieces that are missing?
Right.
The answer to that was no. We're communicating everything. But now, okay, all of the pieces are there. What this comes down to secondarily is emphasis, right? And so going back to, I want to say is episode like 3 or 4, it's Ecom Gadget. We focused on the emphasis needed to be on social proof, third-party validation, right?
Right.
The news. We were saying there's, based off what we're seeing from drop off on the numbers and also looking at Facebook comments and those things, people don't believe there's enough validity behind this of like, I'm willing to make this purchase. Then the next episode where we talked about e-com supplements, it was focusing more on value stack. What are you getting when you buy, right? So really when we talk about how, are all of the components of the sales letter formula there? And then it comes down to emphasis.
Right.
There's going to need to be a greater emphasis on certain things for certain sales processes.
Right.
And so with this particular one, we talk about emphasis. This was on scarcity. Is what we needed to better emphasize. Basically, this offer was like, hey, this is available to anyone. And we were looking at saying, okay, the reason there's lack of urgency is because right now it looks like anyone can get it.
Yeah.
We need to focus on developing a process, a qualification process that makes it feel more scarce. It's still available, but that process is important in making sure that more people are going to move through the process, right?
Right.
And when I say this, something that's really important to me, I hate fake scarcity. When people are like countdown timers or, there's a bunch of stuff there. So this was you and I actually sitting down and saying, what is our constraint, right? And what's important there is the constraint with this particular business is the number of people who can field phone calls. So is making that a real known thing. We need to understand, like, there's only so many people that can actually hop on the phone, go through the qualification process, etc. So we need to make them feel the real scarcity of this particular process was important to ensure that people understood, like, this is a real limited thing. It's not available to absolutely anyone.
I also chalked it up to, there's an element of the messaging, like there is a question, or I guess it's like an innate desire the human desire to want to belong, right? So when you ask questions like, do you qualify for this thing? Your I guess your desire to belong is innately kind of, triggered, and you're like, oh, do I? So it's almost like a reverse psychology trick a little bit as well, too, because it's like, even if it's like when you take those stupid Facebook Disney, it's like, what Disney princess are you? It's like, I don't actually give a damn, but like, I'm kind of curious. Basically the same thing.
Yeah, so we developed a qualification process, and something that's really important when we develop qualification processes is having you do not qualify, right?
Yeah.
So part of it is when we were going through this, it's not a ton of questions. They're not groundbreaking questions, but there are a couple of important questions that make the urgency increase. And then on top of that, if they're yes, no questions, if people answer no, they're told, sorry, you don't qualify for this, right? And it's something where we're like, we only have a limited number of people that can field the calls, the actual product on the back end. So if you don't answer that you're interested in doing this right now, you're immediately DQ'd. You don't get the opportunity to place a call. And so that was something that having a better qualification process and the ability to DQ people before they hit that page is really kind of how we architected this. Ultimately, what this came down to, I'm just going to put form here as a qualification form.
Yep.
But this part of this process was really important on the how is we added an extra step in the process. And once again, a lot of times people look at us and go, you're absolutely crazy. Why would you do this? Yeah. But I'm going to come back here. We had plenty of volume of people getting to the landing page. We just didn't have a high enough conversion rate. So we say we've got plenty of people getting up to bat. We're just not getting enough base hits. Right. So if we add a step, we may get fewer people completing the next step. But if they're higher quality, right, if they're higher quality, they're better validated, we believe that's what's going to move the needle. And so once again, this is kind of how we sat down and made this presentation to the client. Look, guys, we know you've been super successful. You're asking us to help you move to the next phase of the scaling process. If we keep things as is, it's not going to happen, right? Yep. We can't just media buy our way to better numbers. We have to make a change to the funnel. This is a simple, straightforward test. We're going to implement a qualification process, a few questions that someone has to go through before they're presented with that opportunity to call. And then we'll go from there. And we can get to the numbers here really quickly, but I think what's important for this is getting a successful business to understand what we're trying to accomplish. What we said is, look, all we have to do is improve. So like, yes, this is the number that we're focusing on, but if we can improve something in here between these three steps, it's going to improve the overall conversion rate, which is really what's important to us, right? With this aware process helps us figure out where does this start, but it's the cumulative process across all of them that's really what matters in the end.
So we go through, we've identified the click to call step as what we're going to choose to place our emphasis on. Why is this click to call rate so low? Well, it's so low because there's a lack of urgency. There's no clear value prop. We're kind of being too generalist. Nobody thinks we're not made it special enough, I guess is maybe a good way to put it, right? How are we going to address it? We're going to layer the sales letter formula over what's there, see what we need to add, if we need to omit, what needs to be adjusted to make sure it's properly aligned. Okay, check, great. Putting emphasis on the scarcity portion of the sales letter step, and then basically building out a qualifying lead form. Simple questions, literally 3 questions. And once we implemented all these things, how did the test go? Let's talk slightly about the strategy around the implementation of this experiment, and then let's move on to the results.
Yeah, implementation side, we set up a separate landing page. We did an A/B Facebook split test, best ad, one going straight to the call page, and then one going through the qualification process, right? So we were able to use best performing ad, true A/B split test, different unique ad IDs to be able to run this. And that's ultimately, we said, we just want to see what's the impact going to look like And it's a pretty big deal. So we'll kind of come down here to the numbers.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing, I colored these the way I did on purpose. Okay. Our click to call rate actually dropped. So it was 10% initially, and it dropped to 8.5%. So a lot of people would say this is a loss, right?
Yeah.
But when we look at this overall, right, our connect rate went up from 50% to 70%. So this was 50%, and then this was 10%, right? So we had this is a 40% increase from
Right. You're the math guy. Yep.
overall increase in conversion rate. So once again, the number we were looking at, the percentage went down, but everything after it went up, and not a small amount, right?
Right.
And so
Let me
overall,
ask you this.
you're good.
Well, I know we talked about in the beginning, we're talking about, okay, we're going to focus on click to call, and we knew that the close rate could possibly be a level of high impact as well, right? But we deferred that to the client because that's what they controlled. Between our fix and this now increased percentage, you know, the increased performance on the close rate, this was inclusive of the client looking at their process, or this was strictly the client hadn't really edited? I know we have since, but, you know, is this pre-client really focusing on close rate?
Yeah, this was so like overnight we saw the close rate improve because the people that were getting on the phone had more sense of urgency. They were more willing. They're saying, okay, this is, I'm qualified. This is for me. And so that was kind of the piece here of when we look at the propagation, the higher connect rate, people they're getting through were more understanding of the offer, more desire to actually complete it. And then the close rate was the same way. We were once again showing that our metric of click to call got worse, but all of the quality behind it got better. And we've seen something similar as well for those that do high ticket sales. When you have a more strict qualification process, your close rates, your opportunity rates improve because now people feel that this offer is more for them. So it's just like, this isn't the only time we've seen this, but it's definitely something that made a difference in this particular area.
I think it's important to this really exemplifies why you can't look at things in a silo. Why you can't look at, because like if you just looked at, okay, we are like, sure, we chose to focus on that click to call rate as far as what we were trying to change. We did change it, but if you were to just be obsessive over that single metric without really having the proper one North Star of data to pull your stuff back in to see the true impact that you're having, or two, you only looked at that metric, it would be very easy to not even recognize the impact you have because you're not really truly aligned with the math inside your business, right? So again, this is that idea of like really understanding the math that makes all of this work. Because again, you look at that and you're like, well, what the hell? You actually dropped it. Like if you just, if we didn't have the proof in the pudding on the CPA side, like you go to a client and say, hey, we were trying to do X and this is what happened. They'd be like, oh, you just wasted our dollars. Actually, no, but sorry, segue. Profitability. So they, in this instance, they think they've always chosen volume pretty much, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So profitability was created and we poured it back into volume, and I'll get into a deeper breakdown of what all we were able to achieve. Yeah. But that's the short answer.
Yeah. So
when it comes to on the algorithm side, we were absolutely able to produce more when we were looking at this, a higher volume of the event that we're optimizing for, right? Which is a connected call.
Yeah.
When we look at it with brass tacks off the same amount of spend, right? We only improved by 8.55 calls per 1,000 clicks. But now we had room in the math. We were able to scale up the spend, which gave us this additional volume. And so this is where we got to the 50 conversions per ad set per day. This was super important for us to get here. It really helped us improve performance on Meta because we were able to produce so much more call volume.
For sure. And this has been the algorithmic learnings, I guess, if that's what we're going to chalk it up to for this client, are just really, really, I think the most visible by the I feel like because this client has had such consistent volume for a long time now, anytime I think it's kind of postulation, it's kind of supported by data as well, but like our hit rate, for example, on new ads with this client is unbelievable. Despite the fact, my theory is that a lot of it has to do with the consistency of the information that is coming into this ad count by way of the algorithm, because we've just really honed in the sales process, right? So it's like, I would say if we launch 5 ads at a time, 3 of them live on in perpetuity. Like that's pretty stinking good, like for ad creative refresh and things like that. So the algorithm that we talk a lot about from a performance standpoint, but I do think it actually makes the creative process a lot easier. It's almost like a permanent record, black book kind of thing that Meta has on you and your account. I really, really believe that when you reach this point of the consistent conversions on the account, your ads get a little more boost, a little more kiss from Facebook when you put them out there. So that's made this very fun too, because man, like the dopamine hit from a winning ad, and when you get that a lot in the course of, you're like, yeah, let's make more, let's keep going. So the momentum building component of that from the creative side too has been a lot of fun. Like it's made it easy to keep wanting to develop and push things out. So moving into the diversification side of things, no SKUs here. So we're going to talk message stacking, and we're going to talk platform diversification. And these two things have been vital. I'm going to use the word vital to the continued success of our work with this client.
Absolutely. And before we get to these, I want to kind of talk about what this change allowed us to do, because I did a summary of the results within the first 30 days for a presentation for the client. So we were able to increase spend by $254,000 in a 30-day window, which was essentially like 2x where we were currently at. Okay. So doubled our spend. We doubled our sale. I'm pretty sure it was a 93% increase in sales. So 93% increase in sales. And our CPA dropped by about 10% overall. Okay. So when you can increase your ad spend by $250,000, double your sales volume, and drop your CPAs, right? That's what we're looking for. So this was this was phase 1. Like this was literally when we talk about the scaling game, we want to increase our spend and keep our CPAs flat. Like could not more clearly say this is exactly what took place. And this is where we started to roll into, okay, we've optimized this sales process to more or less the best of our ability. Now we need to really focus on how do we continue to grow what we're doing. So Sammy, kudos to Sammy on the message diversification, right? So when we talk about message stacking, basically we got into this point on the back of one ad, right? More or less one ad with a couple of small iterations on them. So I tasked Sammy and I said, we've talked about message stacking, we've done this, but like this needs to become absolutely everything that we focus on. So Sammy set to work doing research, digging in, understanding the problems of this audience, going deeper, making more tailored, use cases, etc. And so put out a bunch of ads in the course of a month. And I know we were able to grow spend an additional 25, 30%, literally on the back of new video ads, right? That was a really big deal. The next thing that Sammy is, and Sammy's converted the way that I think about this, is I've always been a video heavy person. Images have never been something that for me have been like, hey, we should really focus on testing this earlier in the process. Sammy's always kind of come from the other side. And I think that has to do with some of your experience on the brand side, the other affiliate things that we didn't work on together. So Sammy was like, we need to lean more heavily into images. And so my thing is with images, okay, if we have an image, we have to have an advertorial because the video does a lot of the communication. So let's basically take the same recipe that we have in the video ad, turn it into an advertorial, and then have the qualification process at the bottom. We went through a few iterations of that, and we found a couple that worked okay, but then we kind of went in and rewrote one with a new way of looking at our advertorials, and all of a sudden the conversion rate of that advertorial was double. The other thing that was really cool about that is the close rate of people that come through the image and that advertorial is almost 30% higher than the people that go through the video process. So it was like, oh, okay, this is massive, right? So first we had diversification of video messaging. Then we came and layered in more images and advertorials. And that's become 40 to 50% of our account spend is on images.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that people understand that, especially if you've had a video background like I have. The image component and taking, once again, the same sales letter formula, but communicating it through a different medium is super, super important for continued scalability. Anything you want to touch on there?
I just think it's important to be able to look at what the ultimate driver, like when I think of my process and developing kind of the alternate routes to ultimately accomplishing the same thing for this client. It's just really important to, again, I'm going to allude back. I think it was this episode. And I said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Right. And this is an example of that, because effectively the combined message of the image and then the advertorial to the lead form was the same message. Like the words were almost exactly the same as like the best performing video ads. Right. But doing my research, understanding things, recognizing that in this group of people, it's an older demographic. They like newspaper. They come from articles. They come from things they read. Like we need to start putting. It's like once you get really in the click of the flow, and again, after a while, there's just an element. I like novelty. We all do. I was like, okay, I've made literally 1,000. It feels like videos. Like, let me try something else. So part of it sometimes is just trying to do something a little bit differently and see what happens. But just really the value of deeply knowing your value props, deeply knowing what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Because ultimately for me, what really pivoted, I guess my understanding, and this sounds so simple to say but I stopped looking at it as I am trying to get these people to purchase the service. I'm just trying to get these people to get on a call. And when you change, like it's almost like moving your own, not the conversion event goal for like the client, right? But moving your own conversion event goal. Because once we identify, we got to figure out what's going on this click to call. So like I'm literally erasing my mind, Men in Black style, from everything in that funnel that comes after the point. I'm trying to just get these people to get on the phone. And really, again, just a feather in the cap of this process, because with that focus, I was able to go and flex the creative muscles to, again, say the message, the exact same thing in different ways. And we continue to do it where, we're sitting, we're still doing it right now. So it's not like it was like a one-time thing and it's like, I do it every week, and this process is so infallible that you can do it every week and come to different conclusions and results and everything else. So it's been a lot of fun, honestly, to do this, because like you said, it's anytime you come into something that you're unfamiliar with or client type or whatever, like when you start figuring it out and clicking it together, you're like, I love the aha moments that come with the wins. So that's my piece.
Agreed. And so that was really important. First, we continue to stack videos. And then we started stacking images. And then as we were doing that, we really focus on platform migration, right? Yeah. And yes, it's important for just getting more spend out. Something that I've talked through with Sammy is there's a lot of overfishing that takes place when you scale up a single ad network. So initially you're getting new customers, new leads, what have you. As you start to ramp up your spend, you start getting more repeats. And this was really cool. This client is exceptional at data. So they were like, hey guys, we're starting to see more repeat calls from Facebook, from these different things. So we were like, we really need to get on new channels. Yeah. So we took our best performers, plugged and played them to other channels. So for video, it was Facebook and then YouTube and then Google Demand Gen. Working through that process was instrumental in continuing to increase our volume and make sure that we were not continuing just to get more and more and more repeats, right? Getting all of those operating at the best level. And then as we started to get the image things in place, we were able to start making native and display work, right? And so that's that part for me that I'm going to give a quick shout out. Joe Burton at ROI Marketplace is the person who has sculpted my thought process behind native. Yeah. Joe's a fantastic native advertiser and really helped me understand it's like, a lot of times I think people think native is its own unique beast. And it is, because you have to do placement management, those types of things. But on the creative process, so I was always trying to like, how do I manage creative testing, placement testing, all these things at the same time without blowing a huge amount of spend?
Right.
He's like, well, what works on Facebook on the image side? Cool. Let's just move that same angle over to native. Now you've settled in, you've concreted what your messages, and now you're just working on placement optimization. Oh, okay, cool, that makes sense. So I'd run a lot of native, but I had never done it in this capacity of like going and building it from scratch and working through those things. So once we found our image angles that worked on Facebook, now we were plugging it over to native networks and being able to see, cool, we've solidified this variable. Let's work through the placement optimization, the cost optimization, all of those things, being able to crack networks and go from there. And so we've got native operating at a really high level. And now we're just focusing on moving it from one native network to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, right? And so this is a part that native currently is about 5% of the overall volume. And I expect in the next 12 months, it'll be 25 to 30% because it'll be on so many networks, so many platforms, et cetera. So I've also seen success with display advertising. So Google Display Network, et cetera. We're going to be able to continue to work through that and get that to a big portion. And so it's important for me, once again, when we talk about platforms, is we want to have our top performing ad network only doing about 50% of our volume. We've been able to get close to that a couple times, right? A couple months, and we're replanning. We replan for this client every single month. We do this with all of our clients now. Our goal is to say, okay, Facebook's going to be our biggest, but we only want it to be 50% of the volume. We want to have all these other networks performing at some level, layering things in to make this happen. And our final frontier is search. Search is a little bit of a unique beast with one because there's a lot of competition, but that's going to be the part for me of going through and getting all of that messaging in place. We will be able to kind of have all of our digital things down, and then we'll have the ability to look at things like connected TV, radio, those types of things to help this client continue to scale. But this is just kind of this process of, once again, finding where your math is breaking, fixing that particular issue, and then the way you continue to scale, message stacking, platform. Yeah. And so this has been really cool to be able to watch this process continue to evolve and figure out how do we continue taking things from the next level. When we started with this client, their kind of average spend on a month was about $100,000, and now they're about $1 million, right? So it's a 10x, and the volume's gone with it, and the CPA has gone with it. So like when we talk about the scaling game, increasing spend while maintaining CPA, it's been able to do that, and that's been really great. And once again, part of the reason we're able to do this is because this client is a really good partner. Quick execution, always willing to test stuff, working through different processes. You know, they've got their own custom CRM. We've got all the tracking working through there that I've gone through and helped work through all that stuff. So we can't take credit for a really good business being operated well, but we've been able to partner with them to go through and make some really amazing results happen and get to a level of consistency at volume they were never able to experience before.
100%. And I mean, it's also, again, we're big on symbiosis and in symbiotic relationships. Like, not only obviously we have helped their business in immeasurable ways in a lot of in a lot of different ways, but it's also been immensely helpful to us and to the I would call it like the edification of this process we've now laid out for you all in 10 different episodes. This client, because of the trust we have, because of their willingness to test, their willingness to be data driven, and if the data says it's believable and within striking distance, let's do it. I lost count. I mean, how many? I mean, we do. I know we do it every month, right? This review process every month, but it happens far more often than that because sometimes it's just like you're trying to. What's amazing is you can. Again, the infinite. It's like an infinite loop, and the amazing. Like it's amazing to me, and I've only really gotten to see it through this client, and also the client in our last discussion as well. That you really can reapproach the same exact funnel, the same exact business, right, with the exact same process, and derive different results. Like that's been absolutely astounding to me because I think, well, I was brought up kind of in the John Belcher school of paid traffic in a certain sense, but in my opinion to this point, it always kind of been that like, there's no such thing as consistency in paid traffic because things move so fast and algorithm, all the reasons that everybody gives you as to why there's no such thing as consistency in paid traffic. And this has just been like a total thumb in the nose to that, but in the best possible way, because it has allowed us to deliver results that like, I didn't know we were capable of, straight up. I'm going to be honest with you. So I want to zoom out to the scaling ladder here because I know we can talk about a lot of different instances with this client over the course of our tenure where we can kind of really exemplify a really long-lived and impactful scaling ladder. So let's drop into the conversation here.
When we started here, the first thing that we did to improve results was, just basic creative testing.
Yep.
right? This kind of took us to the next level, and it was like, hey guys, you told me what you want to accomplish, and I don't think creatives and media buying are going to be the path to get us there, right? It was the fastest way to get started working with an unknown funnel, but like, here's where we're at, right? We got here, and this was a conversion rate issue. So this is where we put in our qualification process.
Yeah.
And once again, this was a very simple, quick test. So when we talk about how long we're in a plateau, for a very short period of time, and we made a massive jump, right?
Yeah.
And so this was really working through here. When we got here, this was all just about spend increase, right? And then when we got here, we were stuck again at a creative plateau. And so we started with video stacking. And then we ramped that up. And then we went into image stacking. Whoops. That was horrible chicken scratch.
We've run out of rungs on our scaling ladder.
Image stacking. And then I will go add one more rung. Right? And then when we got here, whoops, let me change this back to blue. So now we're talking about platform stacking, right?
Yeah.
And once again, what this goes to show is that, man, some of these did not come through. I'm just going to...
We'll pretend.
Yeah, this is spend increase.
That's what the captions are for.
Man, my Wi-Fi on this iPad is killing me. Spend increase. So ultimately what we were able to see is that, once again, we're leveraging the same toolbox, but the order of scaling for every client is different depending on what the math tells us the next step should be, right? So it's not just, hey, we need more creatives that are going to allow us to scale up. It's, okay, let's start with creatives because we don't know a lot about the funnel. Let's get some more data. Let's see if we can use our normal process to come in and beat the control. Cool, done. Now we hit a plateau. Our conversion rate's a problem. Let's analyze it. Let's figure out a different step. Qualification process. Cool. Spend increase, video stacking, image stacking, platform stacking. It's just this continual process. And what we do is we evaluate performance every single month. We build out a scaling plan that allows us to look at costs, creative, funnel, and platforms, identify priorities in all four of those areas, and then talk about what are we trying to accomplish this month, right? And I think something that I just want to touch on here really quickly that we haven't talked a lot about in other episodes is cost planning.
I was going to bring this to the conversation surrounding our constant dance of volume and CPA with this client because they're great. They're great for this exact. So I'm glad you're leading into this because I was like, we can't move off from this case study without covering this. So let's talk about it.
As we sit here, it's the day before Thanksgiving 2024 was we're recording this, right?
Happy Thanksgiving, John.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. This is the highest CPM period in the entire year. And we've looked at tons of ad accounts and it's like, yep, this is what happens. And so something that's really important for paid traffic businesses to understand is what we see a lot of times is companies that have success scaling with paid traffic basically say, we're going to see endless growth with paid traffic. And the answer to that is probably no, right?
Yeah.
This is a channel. The goal is to go maximize what you can on a channel. I think we've exemplified here, like we've done this really well. Yes, there are things that we're going to continue to add more blocks to, but there's going to come a point in time where we won't be able to say, hey, we can see a 20, 30% increase, right? We're looking at maybe a couple points a year in what we can continue to produce for volume. What is, on the other hand, though, is when we look at this, and this is something I've spent a ton of time in the last few months working on, is better understanding CPM trends.
Yeah.
Because if we're not able to understand and predict what's going on with CPMs, like we don't get to set the prices. And as CPMs go up, the bundle of 1,000 impressions gets more and more expensive. So your ad budget goes less, it doesn't go as far. And so what we've been able to say is 90 days out. So like I remember I did the scaling plan in September and I was like, hey guys, so we're currently at this CPA level. If you want to continue to hit the same volume in November, your CPAs are actually going to be this. Right? Because CPMs are going up. So what you have to decide is what's more important to you, volume or cost? And we've done this with every client. We have this discussion every month. What's going to happen next month? And then looking 3 months out, what does this look like for you? Mm-hmm. Because as much as I'd love to tell you the whole year, hey, it's going to be 20% growth month over month and your costs are going to stay the same. That's not reality.
Right.
And so this is where when a business is presented this information beforehand, they can start to make decisions on, okay, if we don't want to pay what we're going to have to pay, we're going to reduce our volume. Now we can manage workforce. We can do whatever we need to be able to say, we want to maintain costs, which means volume is going to have to come down.
Right.
Or we need the volume. We can't sacrifice on volume, which means we're going to have to run hot.
Right.
And we have to make up for that somewhere else in the year.
Yeah.
We're going to look at our blended average across the year, right? And so that's what's been really valuable for me is moving from, I've been a VP of marketing over a team of 30 inside of a business and been asked to do projections. And in the past, I didn't have this math to sit down and say, here's what we're currently doing. If we don't have any wins on the creative or the funnel or whatever, all we have is our existing stuff. Yeah, this is what you can expect. And this is something for me that if you take out, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or things for e-commerce, I think a lot of companies really struggle to understand and plan sales volume from paid traffic during the year.
For sure.
We're getting
we
to
talked
the point.
About this a little bit in the ecom gift episode. We covered we talked about seasonality a little bit and how especially if you're a particularly seasonal business or a Q1 business or whatever, understanding where or how much of your money you need to make in what portion of the year is maybe like the simplest way to put it, right? Like understanding that. So when it gets to Q4 and you're a Q1 business, you're like, okay, well, like goals have already been met. We're on pace, we're on track. And it's not like some crazy, chaotic, holy shit, the building's burning down kind of moment. Because what blows my mind about this stuff is like, Q4 comes at the same time every year, right? Black Friday is the same time every year. This stuff is predictable. It is trend-based. And we forget that because we're always so caught up. We don't have the luxury a lot of times, especially in the e-commerce space, especially in the direct response space. Stuff does move quick. So it's very easy to just look at the 7 days in front of you, right? The 30 days in front of you, the 30 days behind you. It's much, much more challenging to be confident enough in your know-how to be able to believe in the process enough to give a 90-day projection or look at the things over the course of a year and have enough faith in the math supporting those numbers that you're saying, I'm willing to take the bet on this, right? I'm willing to base my business's performance on this being truth. This cost performing. I'm not a business owner, right? I sit here, but I see it on our client side. Like I see how easy it makes, I guess I want to say our negotiations with our clients regarding, hey, we think this needs to happen. This cost planning thing, I think, has been a huge bargaining chip. I don't know the right word, in order for us to either do or not do the things they want to do. It's been very, very amazing to kind of follow in your footsteps as you've been working through it, rolling it out, understanding the projections better, really getting them to the point where you're a percentage point off, in the course of your projections and things like that. That just seems like something, again, that 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't know that I would have thought was possible then or ever. And here we are now, like, able to explain it,
Yeah, I mean, we have seen that our 90-day projections are within about 3%. And the only reason they're not 100% is because we've had account shutdowns or whatever. That's kind of that part of, like, this would be right on the money. And I think what's, once again, really, really important for businesses to understand is you have to plan out your year. Like Q4 is a pretty bad time for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking at is like, I really think that companies are going to start becoming like ski slopes where it's like, we're only open full staffed, right? it'll continue to operate, but they're going to streamline their operations to be
right.
like,
We'll just have we'll turn the slopes into dirt bike paths for the summer and have half the staff.
Yeah. And so I think what's really important is you figuring out, okay, well, we can get while the getting's good, maybe your Q1, Q2, Q3, whatever it is. But if you need to continue to operate a certain level of volume in Q4, it's going to be more expensive. We need to offset this somewhere else. So maybe you don't run as hard as you can in your good times, so you have a bigger profit margin. So now you can make up for it in Q4, right? And so this is this part for me of having discussions with business owners and operators about, okay, on a 12-month cycle, here's your good times CPM-wise, here's your bad times. Where do we need to be at during your good times to offset your bad times? Maybe you want to maximize volume in your good times at a certain cost and then ramp down in Q4. Or, hey, we can't do that, John. We have a team that we have to operate. Cool.
Right.
Okay, awesome. I'm presenting you with information so to try and help you better run your business. So if you're going to be running hotter in Q4, maybe you're just not aggressive in Q1, Q2 to offset that, to be able to make these different things happen. And that for me has really helped me move from, we're not an agency that buys ads. We're a growth partner, and we're saying, how do we help you maximize your profitability? And this for me has been really important, not only to be able to have that discussion, but also have faith that the information we're providing is really accurate.
Yeah.
And so this is just something for me that's become a really big, important part of our process. And being able to leverage the times of year and the things that we're doing to focus on the right things has been super valuable.
Yeah, like you said, trying to make the troughs more shallow. You know, they just make the climb to being things being good less high, and the drop to things being bad way less low. You know, just lower your overall baselines. It's really what it comes down to. So, this again, guys, this is episode number 10. This has brought us to current times. We kind of traveled through the past 10 years as we did it. And I hope you guys have really gotten to understand how this process has evolved. I think we've done a fantastic job of showing kind of the origin stories, how it's developed, what things fell away, the decisions we've made, why we've made them, and why we can sit here right now and spend 10 hours of our life talking about a process that it's because we believe in it. We're not sitting here like John and I talk on the phone all the time. We don't got to do it in front of you guys to talk to each other. Like, you know, so we really, really have faith in this process. We really believe in it. We know it can be impactful in every vertical across every business because we've done it, as we've proved multiple times with ones that we did no experience with. So I think that's almost fun now, John. I kind of see it itching you. Sometimes you're like, oh, I want a funnel type I haven't tried yet, right? Like I want to add another one to put another notch on the belt kind of thing. So as we roll this one in, this is definitely our longest episode deserved to be, as it has been our proudest, I guess, it's kind of our little baby. What you got to say in closing, John? What's the big takeaways? What can people expect from us going forward? Kind of give us your closing thoughts, because this will probably be the last of the case studies for a while. We're going to start moving into, I think, just more generalized educational content. But here's the floor. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so big picture for me, number one is this process works on any funnel type, even if we don't have experience, because it's based on math, right?
Yeah.
We knew nothing about this funnel type, and we've been able to 10x their production in the course of 12 months, which for me is just like, we were able to achieve things that I didn't know we were going to be able to achieve.
Yeah.
Number two is, as you can see here, this is not media buying hacks, right? We had one media buying adjustment in this entire process.
Yeah.
Was changing the optimization point on campaigns. And we were able to do that because we're capturing all the click IDs, sending the stuff back on the offline conversions for all of the networks, because we had enough volume to be able to do that. That's the only media buying magic. And there's nothing super complicated about it. It's just we had enough volume to make that happen, which improved traffic quality.
Yeah.
But
no pixel tickling here.
No, and this is about sales, and it's about strategy to being able to continue to spend. And then moving forward, what Sammy and I are working on right now is a content calendar that's going to help better explain how these things work, why it matters, those types of things. We only work with a limited number of clients at a time because we do performance. We like to work closely with our partners. But what we're trying to work on is, how do we continue to provide more information so more people can do this? And so that's going to be, you know, the plan moving forward. But I'm just excited to start digging in now on the content side and showcasing how do we think about things? What's the different perspective to try and help direct response advertisers? I'm writing the blog post right now about the scaling game. And the title of the post is the game every direct response advertiser plays, but most don't know how to win. Right. Yep. And so what I want to talk about is how do we give more content about how to win at this?
The house. I think it's the house, right? It's really what it comes down to. People understand where. People understand the idea of where, right? Where something's messed up. Most people are at least attuned enough that are spending dollars on paid traffic anyways, or attuned enough to understand the progression rate conversation. That's easy, right? The where is easy. The why, also kind of easy. You might have to dig into tools, not necessarily in your direct response toolbox, but the why, typically understanding human nature, is not that hard because we ourselves are humans. What it really becomes is the how. The how is the translation of the where and the why into change. The how. So I think, John, that's going to be our work. That's, I think, the work we enjoy, though, is trying to, decipher what's in our brains for everyone else to kind of get to ride along with. Like, it's a genuine joy for us to talk about this stuff. Obviously, we're nerds for it. Again, we just sat here for how long and talked about it. But yeah, John, I'm really excited. I think it's nice to kind of get over the hump of talking about a lot of these case studies. It's been a lot of work to get to this point. So it's nice to kind of see it come to fruition. And I think I'll end my call to action with, guys, if there are specific things that you want us to talk about, like there are topics, things that we mentioned, things we didn't explain well enough, things you want to hear more about, sound off in the comments. Let us know, because you're ultimately going to be our driver of what is interesting, what is valuable, and what people want to hear. So from this point forward, I guess, balls in your court, audience.
Yeah, and once again, I don't anticipate we're going to have thousands, tens of thousands of subscribers. So every person's voice in the comments are going to make really a big deal because we're talking about a very niche subject, and we're cool with that, right? This is what we love to do. We wake up every day to play this game. And so if there's something we can do to help you play it better, let us know.
Absolutely. John said it best. Guys, we will see you in the next episode, whatever that may be. Bye.
Talk soon.
Thank you so much for watching The Scaling Game. John and I know that time is your most valuable currency, so we do not take your attention lightly. If you could do us a solid and drop a comment below, letting us know what you loved, what you hated, whatever it is, leave the comment so that we can read that comment and then go and use it to inform our future content. We appreciate that as well. If you have interest in working with the team at Deciphered, you can head on over to deciphered.com. That's Deciphered with a Y. Fill out the lead form, and then we will reach out to you to schedule a feasibility assessment. Outside of that, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one.